Shabbat Shalom and good morning. It's great to have you with us. If you've never been here, this is Beth-El congregation. And I should also have to make sure to also look up there a bit because we know there are relatives and friends and congregants also watching. You're like, where? There's a camera. And they're also watching, and we know that kind of a new reality for many worship institutions from COVID is a lot of people got used to watching at home in their pajamas. So we know there are family members possibly at home. We know there are congregants watching from home, and we want to say hello to them. And we also want to thank our streamers who make sure that this is not only going out to the community and the world, but also saved for the family. So we thank them for that. So welcome to Beth-El congregation. If you've never been to a Jewish service before, we're glad to have you here with us. Everything we say in Hebrew, or almost everything we say, will be transliterated. Not Asher's Torah portion. We'll speak more about what that is later, but that'll be in Hebrew and English here in this little booklet later, should you wish to follow along to what he is reading in our service. But for those who haven't been here, when a young man turns 13, when a young woman turns 13 in our tradition, they become bar bat mitzvah. They don't really have a bar bat mitzvah, they become a bar bat mitzvah. And what that means is, that literally means they become a son or daughter of the commandment in the eyes of Judaism. So they're a Jewish adult. Now, what does a Jewish adult mean? They're not going to grab the keys and drive off with the car. Maybe he is, but most are not. But it means they're now responsible for their religious life. And so as part of this preparation, Asher learns to read from the Torah, the scroll that the Jewish people have been reading from for their history for thousands of years. And it's in the Ark, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the Torah service. And Asher will also teach us a little bit about his Torah portion, which comes from the Bible, the story of the rebellion of Korach. So he becomes a teacher, he becomes a reader, and he also becomes a prayer leader. So Asher's been leading some of the prayers the Jews say in their morning worship, so that should he be called upon to make a prayer quorum, should he wish to be a leader, he knows those prayers, which means that this is a service, which also means friendly reminder to please put your phones away. If you were thinking of it, we had a great photographer here, and at the end of the service, if you want to say, please pose with me, feel free. But this is a worship service. Asher will be leading us in worship on this morning. If you do have a family member who could not be here, a friend, no, you can tell them, you can do that one thing, that they can go to the Beth-El website, Bethelfw. So not just Bethel, or they'll go to a Christian Bethel website and see a different ceremony this morning, but Bethelfw.org, and they'll be able to join in this service as well now or later. So for this worship service, he becomes a prayer leader. He becomes a man in the eyes of Judaism. He becomes responsible for his own spiritual and religious life. And nowhere is that represented quite as much symbolically as in the talit. The talit, which is a prayer shawl, has fringes. Those fringes represent the 613 commandments in the Torah, which Ash will read from. So when we wrap a young man, or when he wraps himself in the talit, he is literally wrapping himself in a Jewish way of life. And so to begin the service, Asher will be receiving a talit from his parents, Rob and Tracy, and we call them up, and we call him over to lead us in the blessing over receiving a prayer shawl. You can find that on 190 in your prayer book. And a reminder, some of you have thin prayer books, some of you have thick prayer books. It's just different versions. If you open a prayer book and you see two sets of page numbers, we're always the one in brackets. If you open a prayer book and you don't, ignore what I'm talking about. Just go to the page number. Page 190, the blessing for receiving a talit.
Hold me in your light. Hold me in your light. Wrap me close and tight, like a curtain.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kishana b'mitzvah v'tzivanu lachatif batzisit.
Amen.
O Teo Kasalma No Teshamayim O Teo Kasalma No Teshamayim Keria 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 like a curtain.
As we continue, I want to also welcome Cantor Monica Odeski, who has been Asher's tutor this past year and is a member of our congregation, and also a cantor who will be leading us in worship this morning, also in prayer and song. Our service continues with a section known as Birhot Hashachar, early morning blessings. It gets us ready for the day. It gets us ready for the blessing of each moment. You can imagine, especially this past year, there are days when we woke up and we didn't say, oh, thank you, God, for another day. There are days we woke up and said, oh, another day. And so these early morning prayers are meant to ground us in the reality of our blessings, and not only at wonderful special moments, but at every time that we are in need of that reminder. So our service will be continuing on page 290 with our early morning Shabbat morning service with the prayers that come to us from the Torah. Many Jewish prayers come to us from the Torah scrolls that Asher will read from. Ma tovu, how wonderful, how beautiful, how fair are your tents.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael.
And prayers for our body and soul, our physical and our spiritual. We continue together in English on page 291. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to sustain life before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofecho basar umaflila asot. And on the next page, 292 in English, the soul that you have given me, O God, is pure. You created it and formed it, breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as I have breath, therefore, I will give thanks to you, my God and God of all ages, source of all being, loving guide of every human spirit. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. We continue on page 312. These early morning prayers serve as a bridge to give thanks for our body and our spirit. The Chatzi Kaddish reminds us that we are moving into the next section of our service with the call of worship and the Shema. Page 312, the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yit Gadol v'yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah Ba'alma Divrach Yoteh V'yomech Machuteh B'chayechon Uvyomechon Uvchayedechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala Uvizman Karich V'imru.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba Mivara, La'olam La'ome Almaya, Yitzbarach, Yitzbarach, V'yishtabah, V'yitzba'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitale, V'yitala, Shmei Kedusha,
Brichu.
Le'elah Mikol Birhota V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nemanta, Damiran Ba'alma, V'imru.
Amen.
Please rise. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorech choshech Osei Shalom uvorech et hakol.
We can continue looking at page 314.
The world is sunlight, restoring the soul, rejoicing the heart, bringing light to the eyes, more welcome than gold, a Torah from heaven. I have no light to give the morning, my Torah, my special human gift, is words. As I bring my words forth from silence, welcome them, you who redeems the sun from darkness.
Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer Hamorot. We continue on page 316.
Ahava rabavtanu Adonai Eloheinu chemla gdola v'terach amalta aleinu b'avur avotenu v'emotenu shebaruchu v'cha v'lamdim chukei chaim Ketichonenu u'lamdenu rachem aleinu v'ten bilibenu le'avinu l'haskil lishmoa lilmod u'lamed lishmor v'lasot u'kayim et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha be'ava.
We read responsively on page 317. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear. In every land and every age, your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one unifier of humanity.
We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel, and joyfully we proclaim that from the dawn of Israel's life we would turn to you and find purpose.
May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds, and their passion for righteousness stir in our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch atah Adonai,
Abocher b'mo Yisrael v'achad.
Yahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Baruch Shem Kavot Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Blessed is our God's glorious majesty forever and ever. You may be seated.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Ve'afta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meyodecha v'chayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווה היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובחומך וכתב להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי וייתן קדושי אלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם. We continue at bottom of page 321. Sing the song of men and women, join in our understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles in earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and generations to come. The song of land once ravished by war, now quiet and content. Her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, שירה חדשה שבחוג עולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו וימלכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד. צאו ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדכנו ממך יהודה בישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות, שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Before we continue with the tefillah, just a note for our visitors that in this section of our service, we move through a Jewish journey. The first part of our service, if you noticed in some of the English, talks about creation of the world, revelation, the giving of Torah, the walking of freedom, all of these steps in our history. We now turn to what seems to the visitor like just a series of random prayers, but they actually make up one big section known as tefillah, the prayer. On weekdays, tefillah has a lot of petitions. Oh God, keep me strong. Oh God, keep me starved. Oh God, watch over me. But on Shabbat, the nature of tefillah, the prayer, changes, so that as Asher leads us, you will hear the usual beginning, speaking of our connection to our ancestors, the first Jews, the shoulders on which we stand in our own lives. Then you'll hear some prayers for strength, and then some reflections for peace and the Sabbath day. But all of those prayers begin with a simple but profound praise that asks God to even help us find the words to know how to approach God's presence. And so we will turn to the tefillah.
Please rise for the call to prayer on page 323. Adonai sifatai tifta ufi yagi techilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagidol Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Yod, גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוהר הסתיבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחייך כה אתה רב להושיע מחכה חיים בעזר מחייך הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מחמנוך בעל גברות ומיתו מלך מלך ממית ומחיים ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחייך הכל
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וכרז זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו ומלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושיבך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated.
The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Page 329 at the bottom, together. The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week we live under the tyranny of things in space. On Shabbat we try to become attuned to holiness and time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Retzeh, retzeh, retzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael, u'tefilatam me'avat yikabel. Utehil ratzon tamid, utehil ratzon tamid, avodat Yisrael amamecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha, be'yira na'avod, she'otecha levadecha, be'yira na'avod.
There is so much for which we are thankful, each of us individually, as we return to health and community, also as a community here, also for the blessings of this day. And so on 332 and 333, you find a reading, responsive reading, Modim anachnu lach, these words which mean we give thanks to you. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations, Modim anachnu lach, together. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, Modim anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, Modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression, Modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom, Modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose, Modim anachnu lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'el hodot. Take a moment in the sanctuary, whether closing our eyes or looking around at each other or preparing for this wonderful moment of being led by Asher or reflecting on the windows, whatever, we take a moment of Shabbat peace, a moment of silence to reflect on our blessings.
Sim shalom, sim shalom. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. שים שלום, שים שלום, ברכנו יוצרנו, כולנו כאחד באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום, שלום. Amen.
Think of our prayer service as a series of steps, not unlike the steps before the ark. We begin telling our earliest stories of creation. We think of our commitment to our families, to our community, to our faith. And then we arrive at the Torah service, reenacting, if you will, the giving of our most sacred laws and customs, the paths that have guided our people. Raising a son, I know, and you know, is by giving them each of those steps with the hope that when they have to take that first step off, they will have the kindness and the judgment and the discretion and the fortitude to pick themselves up and move forward. Each of us places expectations and hopes, teachings and prayers on our children as we prepare them. So too the Torah. When we give the Torah to a young man or woman, we give them the most prized possession of the Jewish people, that book which has guided us, that book which young men have read from for centuries, and which over the last 100 years, women have also been able to read from as part of their Birhot Mitzvah. So on one level, passing the Torah to a young man or woman represents all of our hopes and dreams for our children, all we have for them as they take the mantle of faith and leadership. It also is a very practical leadership skill in Judaism. For the Torah, the oldest continuing Jewish book, was written before vowels were created. And I know if you don't know Hebrew, you're thinking, how could vowels not be created? They just weren't there, and people who knew the Torah knew how to read it. Eventually, the system of vocalization, the dots you see in your prayer book, all the little dots and checks, tell people how to read the words so that something is an ah, not an o, and an e. So that came later. But when a young man reads from the Torah, he reads from it in the same way Jews have read from centuries. Just in the same way that the writing of a Torah scroll has not changed. It is all natural. It is written by a scribe, sewn together and prepared with ink and thread by hand. The writing of a Torah takes at least or more a year. Why do we do all this? So that when Asher reads from the Torah, he will read it as it has been read for centuries. He had to do a lot of preparation with Cantor Monica to get there, but today he will read from the same type of scroll with the same words in the same format as our people have for centuries. And so as we ascend those steps to this special moment, as we turn to the service for the reading of Torah on page 362, we will be calling up Aiden Sandler to open the ark and to assist us, and Kobe Sokolov to pass the Torah to Asher to receive it, and I will ask the congregation to please rise.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל העולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
From generation to generation, this Torah is passed along. Our people have survived because of it and because of the teachings and the sacrifices of grandparents and parents. And now you pass the Torah to Ash.
כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. שאו שערים ראשיכם, ושאו פתחי עולם, ביבוא מלך הכבוד. מיהו זה מלך הכבוד? אדוני צבאות, ומלך הכבוד סלע.
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is the gift to all who treasure it.
Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Lemo Yisrael B'Kedushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, Uramema Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai Hagedula Behagevura, Hatiferet Vehanetzach Behahod. Ki ho bashamayim uvaretz, ki ho bashamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlecha, v'hamitnaseh lechol rosh. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lehakocho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lehakocho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu ramemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu ramemu. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahakocho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahakocho.
You may be seated. Thank you. It's not you, it's the doors. It's the doors. They're heavy doors. Yes. Very heavy doors. Yes. Okay. I don't know if he wants to do the Aliyah from here or I'll get that in a minute. We will be reading from We will be reading from the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, the journey through the desert. Should you wish to follow along in Hebrew or in English. Numbers 16, verses 23 through 33 can be found in the middle of the service pamphlet. And I know you're not wondering, but if you are, the service pamphlet is the one with these great pictures of Asher in the back, as opposed to the prayer book, which doesn't have no pictures. So he is going to be reading from the book of Numbers. The Torah portion is called Korach. Korach is the leader of the rebellion. I'm not going to say more about it because Asher wrote a wonderful speech that will explain to us how he perceives and understands the story of Korach for our Torah portion. For first Aliyah, Ya'amdu, Likro et Torah. We call up for this first Aliyah Rishon, Rob and Tracy Sandler, your parents, to help us with the Aliyah before the Torah.
Baruch et Adonai HaMarah.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMarah L'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher barakah banu mikol ha'amim v'natah lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Lemor, Deber el Ha'eda Lemor, He'alu Mitzaviv Lemishkan Korach Detan Va'aviram, Vayakam Moshe Vayelech El Datan Va'aviram, Vayahu Acharav Zignei Yisrael. Vaydaber el Ha'eda Lemor Saru Na Me'ah Aholei Hana'ashim Harshaim Ha'ela Va'atigu Bechol Asher Lahem Pentisafu Bechol Hatotam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natin lanu Torah amet. V'chayei olam nata b'tuchenu. Baruch atah Adonai notin ha-Torah.
Amen. Oh, wonderful. Our second Aliyah to the Torah, we will be calling up Jeff and Debbie Sokoloff. Ya'amdu, Shani, Likro et Torah, the second Aliyah to the Torah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborah.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Vayalu Me'ah Mishkan Korach Detan Va'aviram Mitzaviv Vedatan Va'aviram Yatsu Nitzavim Petach Aholehem Unshehem Uvnehem Vetapam Vayomer Moshe Bezod Terun Ki Adonai Shalachani La'asot Et Kol Hamamasim Ha'ela Ki Lo Milibi Im Kamot Kol Ha'adam Yimetu Un Ela Ufkudat Kol Ha'adama Yipaked Alehem Lo Adonai Shalom Vayimbriya Yivra Adonai Ufatzta Hadama Et Piha Uva'otam Ve'et Kol Asher Lahem Vayardu Hayim She'olah Vidaten Ki Niatsu Hanaashim Ha'ele Et Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And our third aliyah, Ya'amod Ligro et HaTorah Bachur Habar Mitzvah, Asher ben Rab V'Tracy Ligro et HaTorah.
Birhot Adonai Hamvara.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vahi kehalito ledaber et kol hadvarim ha'ela v'dibaka ha'adama asher tachtehem v'tivta ha'aretz et piha uva'otam ve'et batehem ve'et kol ha'adama asher lekora Ve'et kol halachush Vayardu Heim v'kol asher Lahem Hayim She'olah Vadchas Alehem Ha'aretz Vayodu Mitoch HaKa'al Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam Asher natan lanu Torah emet V'chayei olam nata Bethel Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're going to continue dressing the Torah, preparing to return it. We'll return it after, of course, we hear some words of teaching from Asher and remarks from his parents. To dress the Torah, we call up Kayla and Joel Sokoloff, and because the Torah will be lifted, I ask the congregation to please rise.
Bezot HaTorah shesam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe la 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 la.
Please be seated. Want to drink of water first? I did. You're good. Okay. That's just so. When you are ready, just go ahead.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to this service on such a beautiful day. It is wonderful to have you all here to see me complete my bar mitzvah. Now, there was no way I could have done this by myself, so I want to recognize the people who helped me complete this journey. I'd first like to thank Cantor Monica. You were the one who started this journey with me on day one and taught me everything I needed to know to complete a morning service. You listened to me when I complained, but then got me back on track when I wandered off course. I could have not done this without you. And of course, Rabbi Zimmerman, you guided me through this and did so much to prepare me. You were always available to help me. You made me laugh when I would get stressed practicing on the bima. You made me feel at ease, and I appreciate it. You two are the ones that taught me what I needed to know and made it possible for me to complete this wonderful experience. I'm truly thankful. I want to spend just a minute to thank my mom and dad. Now, my dad has always been there for me. Every time I don't want to practice, or I'm having a hard time, he's always there to encourage me or help me go through it. And my mom has always thought I've done so well. Even if I'm not, it makes me feel like I am. She has also helped me when I need help. Both my mom and dad helped me go through this, and I just want to say I appreciate it. Now that we have made it through the big part, I'd like to tell you what I'm talking about, since I believe most of you have no idea what I'm saying. So let's get into that. Now we start in the book of Numbers 16:1 to 18:32. To get things started, we are in the desert after escaping Egypt. Moses and all of the others created a sort of temporary campsite to stay for a little while. While they are in camp, Korah starts to think that he is worthy of the power that Moses and Aaron have. Now, another big reason for this thought or belief is Korah is the son of Izhar, grandson of Kohath, and the great-grandson of Levi. Because of this lineage, he is first cousins to Moses. Since Korah is related to Moses but has no special title or ruling in the tribe, he finds it a disgrace to himself. He starts to feel like Moses is using God all for himself. He almost sees Moses as a tyrant. So he goes to people telling his belief about how he sees Moses and Aaron, and those people believe him. Now that he has an abundance of people on his side, he challenges Moses and Aaron's leadership. What they would do is offer a pan of fire with incense on it to God. Whose pan of incense is accepted is the proven leader among the Israeli community. After they go to God and see who their new leader is, don't be shocked, but Moses and Aaron win. Since Korah and all of his followers lost, God decided to punish them. What God did was open the earth and swallow all of Korah, his followers, and everything related to them. God then struck the people with a plague, but Moses and Aaron intervened to stop it from continuing. Korah and his people are wiped off the face of the earth in a mere instant. Now, I can see the way Korah was thinking about how he wanted more, since of how closely related he to Moses. Like, if I was related to Bill Gates, then you know I'm asking for a little money. Now, I do see Korah as the bad guy here. To me, he took his rebellion way too far and should have settled in a simpler, nicer, and more respectful way. Also, for a little twist in this, I think God had taken the situation a bit far. Should God have killed Korah and his entire following? Did the punishment fit the crime? Well, let's think about this in more detail. What if God just gave Korah a mere slap on the wrist and said, "Now, don't do that again. That wasn't nice." Then what will stop the next relative, next generation, or next person like Korah to challenge God's decision? Now, you still may think the punishment was extreme, but the punishment was not just for Korah and his new followers. It was a warning to anyone that questions God's word and his followers. Plus, in fact, if Moses was truly using God for power and to rule, don't you think God would have sensed this because God is all-knowing? You know, this reminds me a little too much of? This reminds me of Elizabeth Holmes. Her story is similar in many ways. If you don't know who Elizabeth Holmes is, she created a company called Theranos at 19 years old. Let's say it did not go too well for her. She claimed that she created this revolutionary new medical device. This device took a very small sample of blood from a patient and would conduct multiple medical tests to help diagnose the patient. At its peak, the company was valued at $10 billion. It was a complete fraud. It was completely fake. You may be wondering, how does this relate to the Torah and the story of Korah? Elizabeth Holmes completely lied to doctors, patients, employees in the company, to stockholders, and the public. Korah went to over 200 people and lied about Moses and Aaron. Korah lied about how Moses and Aaron led the Jewish people, that they were tyrants and not a follower of God, that he was using God instead of following God's direction. So like Korah, Elizabeth Holmes got greedy. She wanted wealth and power without actually working ethically for it. Can we say Korah worked as hard as Moses did? Let's think about a comparison in their punishment. Korah was made an example of, correct? Elizabeth Holmes was made an example of by going to prison in her early 20s, would never be trusted to run a company again, and was made an example of to those who want to commit fraud just to be rich and powerful. So, this has been a wonderful journey for me. I've learned so much. This has been a challenging accomplishment, and I feel happy and excited that I'm with you all here today. Ever since I could understand what a bar mitzvah was, I've wanted to do it. The people I have met and the history behind the bar mitzvah has made it so much more rewarding. Just one final thing, I'm happy to see you all here today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those words of teaching. We know that this day means different things, especially those of you who have known Asher for years or even his whole life, to see him take this place. It holds a very special place in the hearts of his parents, and so they offer words of blessing, comments, thoughts here at this time to you, and we ask them to come up.
You ready? Okay. Bubba, what can I say? I am incredibly proud of you, not just for what you're accomplishing today, but the person you are and the young man you are becoming. For your 13th birthday, I put together an album of you from the day you were born through today, and I was flooded with amazing memories of what it's like to be Asher's mom. I remember the day we brought you home from the hospital. We sat you down in your car seat on the living room floor, strapped in. Blue came running up to sniff out what this new little toy was, and I sat down on the couch and I thought to myself, holy shnikes, what do I do now? And before I knew it, so many firsts started happening. The first time you crawled, to your first steps, to your first words, to your first birthday, and of course, to your first OU Super Sooner cape. If this cape could talk, it would have so many stories to share. You wore it nonstop. You loved this cape, and it made you feel invincible. I loved watching you. I got this. I loved watching you wear it as you soared through the house, around the backyard, and of course, our favorite store, Target. You didn't care where we were or who was watching. You were our little Super Sooner. As you jump forward to today, Asher, you are the light in my life, the shine in my sun, my pride and joy. You're my favorite sidekick, someone who makes me laugh harder every day, the one person that loves to jump out and scare me, and the only person that makes me want to be a better mom. Regardless of how good or how bad my day is, the best part of it is when I hear you say, Mom, as you come around the corner and give me a bear hug and say, I missed you, how was your day? That is a simple reminder that you are the best part of me, and it's been an amazing journey, and I can't wait to see what happens over the next 13 years. You will always be my Bubba, my sunshine, my pride and joy. I love you yesterday, today, and tomorrow too.
Does anyone need to take a bathroom break? Because this might be a little bit. No?
Cliff notes, dissertation.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming, especially the family and friends that have played a major role in Asher's life. I also want to thank the congregation Beth-El for allowing us to do this today. Tracy, I want to really thank you for working together to make this event so special for Asher and our families. Monica, all the tutoring, preparing Asher, we could not have done this without you, so thank you so much. And then Rabbi Zimmerman, thank you for all the support and guidance that you've given us, especially this whole year since it's been so hard to navigate whether or not we were even going to be here, so thank you. So when I first sat down and put some thought into this speech, I kept thinking overwhelmingly just how proud I am of you. It's just to watch you start from the very beginning, and it seemed so overwhelming to me and to you, and I wasn't even one doing it. But to watch you grow and gain confidence over this time has been truly a wonderful thing to see. So then I started thinking a little bit more just about you and I. I started thinking about the amazing experiences that we've had together. Trips to Nanny and to see Granddad, all the road trips to Oklahoma, our hunting trip, all the fishing we do on the golf course, and just sometimes just messing around on the course. But what I remember most about these experiences are the times that we've talked and just shared each other's feelings and what was on our mind, and how those things reflected how I was growing up as a boy and the experiences that you and I have experienced together. Page 1 of 4. For me personally, this day means so much in so many ways. But first and foremost, Asher, I want you to remember that it's an observation and a huge celebration of one of the most important events in your Jewish life. I hope your bar mitzvah symbolizes not only not the beginning, but symbolizes the beginning and not the end of a desire to continue to learn, to maintain your faith, to share it with others, and eventually share it with your own family. Being Jewish is not always easy, but it's something to be very, very proud of. This day also brings happiness, but a little bit of sadness. I couldn't be happier for you, but also I'm a little selfish because I want you to not grow up in front of us. I want to keep you the way you are. Another powerful thought I had was something so important and so challenged that you had in front of you, but you never gave up. You never stopped. And I am so proud of you for accomplishing something so big. Your Torah section regarding Torah called up a very specific thought for me. So think about if Moses and all the followers were traveling for hundreds and hundreds of miles in the hot desert, and then you had someone coming up to you, and you were one of the people that were the followers. And they came to come up to you and said, hey, you need to side with us. You need to side with Moses. Come with us. And you're going to be torn on what to do. But Asher, in your life, and you'll find very many challenges like that. It may require you to go against what others might want you to say or do, from your friends, peer pressure, things of that nature. But I always want you to think about the values and the morals that you have in your life, and that will always guide you in the right decisions that you make. You bring me so much happiness. You warm my heart. You are truly the smartest, sweetest, caring boy I have ever met. I never want you to forget that your mom and I will always be here for you, no matter what. I love you more each and every day. Okay, my speech is coming to an end, okay? But I did want to end it with a few quotes that I found that really expresses how I feel. Becoming a dad is one thing. Being a dad is many things. And I love being your dad. My father didn't tell me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it. And I try my hardest to do the right things for you so you can see that. Fathers should know that sons follow more from their example, not their advice. Behind every son that believes in himself was a father who believed in him first. I had no doubt in my mind that you could do this, and I have no doubt that you'll do everything 100% in the future. Of all the titles I've been privileged to have, Dad has always been the best title and the one I'm most proud of. Dads don't just love their children every now and then, it's love without end. Asher, I love you yesterday, today, and tomorrow too, and I'm very proud of you.
My eyes filling up with tears. I think of all my hopes and fears and what I want to say to you. This song is my prayer too, words that come from the heart and to the heart. The sages tell us words that come from the heart and to the heart. I held you close, then let you go. The shoreline for your ebb and flow. My love is like a safety net, always there with no regret. Words that come from the heart and to the heart. You gotta know that words that come from the heart and to the heart. Smile at people, be kind. Take the time to care. Have Shabbat guests learn to cook. Travel everywhere. Choose good friends and be a mensch. Cherish every day. Be amazed at all new springs, and don't forget to pray. The people that are here today, they'll help you all along the way. You do belong, you have a role in making the broken whole. Words that come from the heart, enter the heart. You gotta know the words that come from the heart, enter the heart. I really hope that these words, which come from our hearts, enter your heart.
We continue returning the Torah to the ark. We call up Aiden again to help us open the ark, and we ask the congregation to please rise.
Ora le'eretz v'shamayim ve'anim keren le'amo tehila lechol hasidav livnei Yisrael am gerovo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Etz chayim hi למקזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכנם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם.
Asher, you did an amazing job teaching us. What could somebody even, what else is there even to say about Korah? Well, people have said a lot of things. You talked to us, you taught us. Think about Korah, and think about Moses, and think about the people who followed them, and think about the people and the choices they made. So I'm not going to add much more except to say that I was trying to think about Moses a little. Because, yeah, Korah shouldn't have done everything he did, but there's another difference between Moses and Korah. One of those differences, of course, Moses, and, he was following God, and Korah was kind of maybe thinking about himself and his own opportunities. But Moses gets to do something that nobody else in the Torah really gets to do. He gets to hang out with God all the time, right? And he's not always there when he should be, right? Because I think about Korah, and I say, we can't just blame Korah, right? We have to blame all the people who were told, Moses got you through the desert, he's been with you all these years, he took on Pharaoh, and let's stick with him. And then suddenly they're like, whoa, Korah's the man, you're right, we're going to join you. This is the guy, new leader. So I think about how could they do that? And all I can come up with is that Moses wasn't always there and Korah was. I'm sure there's more to it, but that's right? Think about it. If you could hang out with God every day, even if you couldn't see God, if you're like, what's going on, God? Where are we taking the people? What's up? These Jews are like always whining. God would probably become like your best buddy. Like, yeah, they're driving me crazy too. So it's no surprise that if we look at the Torah closely, Moses keeps disappearing. He's like, I'm going to go hang out with God. Like, they're much more fun than the Israelites. And the more he does it, the more he's like this mystery figure that no one can relate to. Even though he's an incredible teacher, we need people like that. Korach, whatever his intentions, understands. You got to also be around the people who are left behind. So when Korach got up and said, let's forget Moses, there were enough people who said, well, I don't really know Moses. He's on a mountain. But Korach's hanging out with me every year, every day, every minute. And I think part of leading, which I think you get, and will get during your life, and the lesson you've gotten from so many here, your parents and friends and family who love you, is knowing when you've got to be out in front, leading the way, and when you've got to be back with the people, getting to know them and checking who they are, knowing how far to go, how much to push them, when they need that extra kick because they're not moving through the desert, and when you've got to slow down and be compassionate to them. And so part of what I think we get from Moses and Korach, Moses is the hero of the story, and Korach, who's not, is there was something in Korach that people needed. Remembering that people wouldn't be left behind. And part of being a leader and part of being a person is balancing that. And when you've got to be in the front and when you've got to understand the leading, it's kind of being in the back and listening. And I have been so struck by your kind soul and your good heart, your compassion to others, the joy you've had with some of the activities and things you do, like your camp and other things, and also your patience, your kind patience. As mom and dad would be like, can I read this and do this and move this? And I could see you were thinking like, when do I say something and when am I just going to like let it go? You know, how far here? And I can see you have those attributes in your soul that make you a leader and a good person. And so it's great joy to welcome you as a son of the commandment and someone who's worked so hard to read from his Torah. And while I would never pressure you, just know that if you ever want to do it again, you are a great Torah reader. And I don't need to do it every week. I'm always looking for volunteers, at least with Korah. And so we're going to ask God's blessing upon you with words that are thousands of years old, words that come from his Torah, words that parents sometimes share with their children at Shabbat or at their wedding, words that rabbis get to share with babies and at weddings, words of blessing to the community, words that were first said by Moses' brother Aaron. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God bless you and guard you in the journeys you take, the pathways, the steps, the choices. May you always have the blessings you need. The love of your family, the support of your friends, that moral conscience and menschlichkeit, that kindness and decency that's part of you. And may God give you all the blessings you need, including shalom, the blessing of peace, all the days of your life. Amen. And we continue with Aleinu on page 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ושכינה רוזו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ne'emar is on 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad. Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad.
Please remain standing for another moment. This is a time in our service where we remember those who have passed. At every Jewish service, we take time for the Kaddish, a prayer of memorial, because we know that some of our greatest achievements in life occurred because we stood on the shoulders of others. Even those who may go back several generations, who made sacrifices of which we may not even be aware. And so we read on page 595 together at the bottom of the page, "There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that lift up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember." We turn to page 598, and for those who are watching at home, if you are observing a yahrzeit, know that our thoughts and prayers are with you on the anniversary of this death of a loved one. We join together on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei amayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitala shmeid kudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushmachata v'nechamata damiram bi'almal v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei Shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam l'racha, may their memories be a blessing for each of us. Please be seated. There are many who I know have greetings and words of blessing and hugs if you're doing that, whatever you're doing later, deciding for this wonderful, wonderful day. This is our first bar mitzvah back in person in many, many, many months. And I want to thank the family for being good sports and being pioneers here with us, and Cantor Monica for your help over these many, many months. Howard Bell, the president of our congregation, has been a good sport too. When he was asked to be president, I am sure no president told him or could have told him, "You'll be president during COVID-19. And it required a great deal of flexibility and openness. One thing he lost was the ability to just kind of give everybody gifts, which is really one of his favorite parts of the job. And so now, while many of us would like to make a presentation, only one more person is, and that is the president of our congregation, Howard Bell.
Yeah, I got that. I don't think I'm going to need that step, but my friend Asher will. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody. Rabbi did earlier, but I'd like to welcome everyone to Beth-El. And as Rabbi Z shared, this is our first unmasked live bar mitzvah, actually since March of 2020. And it's been a long time. So it's bittersweet for me because this is my first bar mitzvah in over a year, but it's also my last, as my term of president is almost up. And so there's some good news and bad news, depending upon how you think about that. But Asher, you did an amazing job, and I'm glad that I was able to come and not have to watch streaming as I have for the last 14, 15, 16 months almost. And I've got some things for you that are under here. So hopefully you're getting lots of loot and lots of goodies this weekend. So your dad told me you're pretty studious. So studious people need books, all right? So, I wound up with more than I'm supposed to. We'll have to figure this out. Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. Oh, it did show up. All right. So first, from the Jewish war veterans, a series of books called They Were Soldiers in Peace and War, written by the late Dr. Julian Haber, each inscribed. And it tells a little bit of history going back to World War I and even earlier than that of Jewish soldiers from the Dallas or from Fort Worth in the Tarrant County. So sometime when you don't have anything to do, that'll be a good book for you to read. Another book is called On the Doorpost of Your House, and this is Rabbi Zimmerman wrote on behalf of the Beth-El Men of Reformed Judaism, which your dad is pretty active with the Brotherhood and our golf tournament and cooking and all things that we do. And I know that golf tournament planning is underway, right? I talked to Mike Halpin earlier. We haven't been in the kitchen for a while, but that's coming hopefully soon. So there's a book. This is from the Sisterhood, the Women of Reformed Judaism of Beth-El. These are candlesticks for Friday night. And there's one certificate that we don't have, but we will get to you, and that is that your fellow Beth-El teens have planted a tree in Israel in your name and in your honor. So now you can start to nudge mom and dad about sending you to Israel so you can go visit your tree. And from the National Federation of Temple Youth is a certificate for you to use toward a trip to Israel at some point. And then last but not least, so we can all make it legal, is your bar mitzvah certificate that says that we actually did this thing today on June the 12th, and that Rabbi was here and I was here. And you can have your mom and dad sign, and you shared with me that your grandparents are here, both sets, right? So that's cool. Who's from Arizona? All right, so, so dry heat and humid heat, you're about to learn the difference, all right? So, and you've done a great job. I hope you and your family and all your friends that are here enjoy the weekend. Congratulations, my friend.
Our closing song is Osei Shalom. If you need the words, it's on 647. I expect to hear you. So what I said to the congregations, when you're doing it on Zoom, everyone's muted. So I can see their mouths move, but I can't hear anything. When we started meeting in person with masks, I could hear them, but I couldn't see their mouths move. Little weird. Now we got the whole thing, so I expect it all. Osei Shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei Shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imeru amen.
As our service concludes, we join in a prayer over wine and bread. May our day be as sweet and delicious as this. We're not quite at the communal sharing all that here, but later when you do eat, know that we've made that blessing for you. And so we join in the Kiddush and the Motzi. Together, please rise.
Do you want to do the line?
You want to do one?
Go ahead. I'll sing it, you do it.
There you go.
Is there anything in it?
Yes. And it's new, too. There you go. Put it into there. Amen.
Birhot Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר קדשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו ואהבה ורצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים. קיוונו בחרת, ידענו קידשת מכל העמים, השבת קודשך, אהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. Amen.
We join in the blessing over bread. Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to the man. Look, they're all wonderful. See?
And now it's over and you're going, what was all that time? It goes by like that.
Have a
What?
safe trip to New York.
Your feet are from standing like this all this time. What?
Have a safe trip and
Thank
enjoy
you.
your week.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll try not to need you too.
Well, and if you do know, and I'm going to try to wean myself off email habits. So if you need something, text me also. You're not bugging me. Say, check your email. I need you to send something. I mean, please do. Or if you need anything else.